Welcome to Tuesday's edition of COVID-19. I'm Min Sun-hee. Phase 2 of the resumption of offline classes is slated for tomorrow here in Korea. And today we give you a glimpse of the quarantine measures in place at schools to ensure the safety of all. But first, here are the headlines with our Kwon So-ah and Noaram. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
So let's start with the domestic updates. What is the latest?
Well, we do continue to have sporadic infections, mainly related to the cluster outbreak that started in Seoul's Itaewon district, as we have 16 new local transmissions of the coronavirus. Now, combined with 3 imported cases, we have 19 new cases as of this Tuesday, bringing the total to 11,225. We have 2 additional fatalities, so the death toll stands at 269, and some 680 people are still in quarantine, and more than 10,270 have fully recovered from the virus. Now, most of these new infections are concentrated in the capital Seoul, with 9 confirmed cases there, and 3 we see in Incheon and 2 in Gyeonggi-do province, so 14 in the metropolitan area. And then we have 1 case each in Daegu, Chungcheongbuk-do province, Gyeongsangbuk-do province, and 2 cases were detected at the airport. Now, 10 new cases stemming from the Itaewon cluster infection. We have bringing the total number of cases linked to Itaewon to 247 as of 12 a.m., but we have an update of 255 cases as of noon. On that front, some 1,000 more COVID-19 tests have been conducted, around 83,000 in all, since the Itaewon case broke out early this month. Authorities called for vigilance, noting 30% of patients in this case are asymptomatic or silent spreaders. Local districts on Monday were said to have conducted inspections on more than 26,000 facilities with high risks of infection, with administrative orders put on 168 of them due to weak compliance to quarantine measures. And Seoul's City Education Office decided to postpone the resumption of some schools and kindergartens in Gangseogu district by a week as opposed to tomorrow, following a 6-year-old boy's contraction of COVID-19 from his art teacher in that region.
I see. On the international front, Japan is lifting its nationwide state of emergency, I hear.
Right, and that's why you could see crowds of commuters in masks in and around the capital, Tokyo, this morning, with most people returning back to their working places, as Japan, in its whole, in its phased loosening of restrictions, has done the same for the last 5 of the country's 47 prefectures, which include Tokyo and the surrounding regions, as well as the northern island of Hokkaido. According to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Monday, Japan had set some of the most strict criteria in the world and concluded that the country has met the standard to get back to business amid a slowdown of new COVID-19 cases to below an average of 50 a day. Under the state of emergency that had been in effect since April 7th in some parts of the nation and expanded to the entire nation later, people were asked to stay at home and to suspend non-essential businesses. Japan has a total of some 16,600 confirmed cases and at least 830 deaths. That's according to the government numbers. What's interesting, though, is that while Japan is talking about this slowdown, it has actually extended its travel restrictions against South Korea.
Right. Let's move now to the 2 most affected countries in the world, the U.S. and Brazil.
Yes, these are the 2 countries with the highest number of COVID-19 infections. But while the U.S. is already on its way to gradually reopen the economy, Brazil's cases are still surging. And on Monday, the South American country recorded 807 coronavirus-related deaths, which marks the highest daily death toll in the world. And that's more than the U.S.'s daily rise by 620 deaths. Many of those fatalities occurred in slums with poor hygiene and many people not able to get treated. In its latest moves to slow the spread, Brazil extended its ban on non-resident foreigners for another 30 days on Monday. And the U.S., meanwhile, decided to adopt travel restrictions on Brazil 2 days earlier than the original date, which would have been Thursday. The White House did not provide a clear reason for the change, but said the move will help in stopping new virus cases from foreign nationals entering the U.S. And staying with the U.S. now has more than 1.7 million cases, and its death toll is approaching 100,000. Brazil has more than 23,000 deaths now, and Russia has a low fatality rate, however, more than 353,000 infections. And the total across the world now stands at almost 5.6 million, and more than 347,000 people have died from the coronavirus, while 2.36 million have now fully recovered.
All right, so thank you for the international updates. I'll come back to you for the domestic after the regular briefing.
All right.
Adam, stricter rules for those choosing to ride public transportation, I hear.
That's right. So those using public transport must wear masks as part of this no mask, no ride policy. Now, the new rule affects both the passengers and staff on buses, taxis and trains and subways nationwide, not just here in Seoul. The government has also temporarily eased a clause that bans drivers from refusing passengers. If they did ban them, then they would have been fined, but that is no longer the case now. The measure, however, is not legally binding, and there is no way to stop maskless passengers from boarding the vehicle even after denying them entry. But as things are going now, they seem to be going smoothly on the first day, with almost everyone adhering to the new rules, despite the warm weather, because we know masks can get a bit uncomfortable in this climate. And those riding subways who do not have masks can buy one at convenience stores or at vending machines within the station, so they are readily available, and masks will also be required on all domestic and international flights from tomorrow.
I think I might be the only one who already used the subway or public transportation after this new move. And I realized that yesterday already in the evening commute, they had these prints printed out on the turnstiles, which had announcements of to ask people to please wear masks before they get into the subway. So I think that was an appropriate move.
Right, that is good to know. Adam, testing of the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine is being halted at the WHO amid safety concerns.
That's right. The WHO said trials in several countries are being temporarily suspended while a safety assessment is being carried out. Now, this comes after a recent medical study suggesting the drug could increase the risk of patients dying from COVID-19. Now, the WHO has 3,500 patients from 17 countries enrolled in what it calls the Solidarity trial. Now, this is an effort overseen by the WHO to find new treatments for COVID-19. And a WHO official said the suspension was only a precautionary measure for now. And the drug has been under the spotlight recently because mainly of US President Donald Trump saying he was taking it to ward off the virus, despite warnings from public health officials that it could cause heart problems. Now, the trials being put on hold are investigating its use as a treatment for patients who are hospitalized with COVID-19, not as a drug to prevent the disease. Now, researchers also warn that it should not be used outside of clinical trials.
Right, staying with the WHO, officials there are have issued another warning against complacency.
That's right. The head of the WHO's Health Emergencies Programme said we must prepare for a second wave of COVID-19. Here he was speaking at a press conference on Monday.
We cannot make assumptions that just because the disease is on the way down now, that it's going to keep going down, and then we're going to get a number of months to get ready for a second wave. We may get a second peak in this wave.
Now, he also said countries, especially in North America and Europe, must continue to maintain social distancing, tracing and testing measures to prevent an immediate second peak. And now he noted that some countries in Central and South America, as we saw in the numbers, as well as South Asia and Africa, are still seeing a surge in cases, so we can't be complacent now.
All right, Aram, thank you for that. We'll see you again tomorrow. We turn now to the regular afternoon briefing on the COVID-19 situation here in the country. The briefing took place early today at 1:40 p.m. as opposed to 2:10. So we took the liberty of recording it then to play it for you now. We'll come back after it.
Let us now begin our regular briefing for May 26th, Tuesday, on the COVID-19 response. We have 19 new cases, And the total number of confirmed cases now stands at 11,225. And this includes 1,218 imported cases from overseas. Of them, 88.2% are South Korean nationals. And 49 more people have been discharged. And currently, 681 people are in quarantine undergoing treatment. Unfortunately, we had 2 more fatalities. And I extend my deepest condolences to the deceased and the members of the bereaved families. Out of the 19 new cases, 3 were imported and 16 were local transmissions. Of the imported cases, 1 was from America and 1 was from the UAE and 1 from the Philippines. And the following is some updates about the domestic infections. First of all, in relation to the biblical language study meeting at the Seoul Dobonggu District's Grace Church, we had 1 more confirmed case. And this person is presumed to have been come in contact with a confirmed case at the Chusarang Church in the Ujeongbu district of the Gyeonggi-do province. And this raises the total confirmed case in relation to this cluster infection to 9. And next is Gyeonggi-do province in Bucheon City at the Kupang Logistics Center. We have a total of 8 new cases. And currently, we are doing a contact tracing and the epidemiological investigation for the workers there. And at the same time, we are also seeing if they have any linkage to the confirmed cases relation to the Itaewon case. And next is Gyeongsangbuk-do province at Gumi Elim Church. We have 1 more confirmed case of a family of a member of the church, and the total is standing at 9 as of now. In addition, in Daegu, we also have 1 soldier who has confirmed positive, and we are currently doing the contact tracing. As of noon today, in relation to the club, there are a total of 255 cases. And the KCDC, with an effort to stop further local transmissions of COVID-19 within communities as early as possible, we are conducting a mass testing of people who visited public venues and events visited by the confirmed cases. And we have disclosed the list and the time. And if you have been in these places at the same time, you need to get tested as soon as possible, regardless of your symptoms. Moreover, the KCDC is also operating in relation to the COVID-19. We have a monitoring scheme to monitor the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. And as of midnight today, we have confirmed that we have 2 reports of suspected cases of such syndrome, and all of them have been reported at the hospitals in the Seoul. And 1 was below the age of 10, and 1 was in the teens. And currently, we are doing the we're doing the investigation behind these cases. And as for the 1 case, we investigate that it does not fall under our case definition. And we just said that in relation to the multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, and there are some circles that use appropriate wording to describe this syndrome, and we believe that this is not appropriate in terms of the suggestions made by the WHO. So we multiple times urge you to use the word multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, which is also abbreviated as MIS-C. Starting from tomorrow, which is 27th of May, we will have the reopening of schools for high school grade 2, middle school grade 3, elementary school grades 1 and 2, and kindergarten students. In order to curb the outbreak of the COVID-19 within schools, we thank the teachers and the faculty members for your continued efforts to abide by the quarantine measures. And however, we urge you to continue to abide by such measures going forward. And we also highlight the following procedures. If there is a confirmed case within a school, all of the students and teachers are required to wear an MFDS-approved face mask and return home immediately. And the local government will conduct epidemiological investigation, disinfection, restriction of use of the affected facility. And the KCDC, we believe that we have done an analysis of the risk factors for schools, and we have done these for the dormitories for certain regions, including Incheon and Gyeongsang-Dokdo Province, including the Cheongdo. And these will be conducted very soon. And Incheon, they will be conducted through 27th and 28th. And all of the personnel who are needed to conduct such survey will be mobilized from the Defense Ministry. And in Gyeongsang-Bukdo Province, these will be carried out, and these are being carried out right now as of 26th, including a dormitory at the National University there. And the KCDC also, we see that there is a recent rise in local transmissions related to clubs, bars, karaoke rooms, and after-school private academies. So we urge people to refrain from social gathering or visiting any enclosed, confined, and crowded spaces that are frequented by many people. If you have to visit these places for an essential reason, you should carefully follow personal hygiene measures, including keeping 2 meters of distance and wearing a face mask, avoiding handshakes, and washing hands and not touching eyes, nose, or mouth with your hands. And we highlight this multiple times, but if you are in the high-risk groups, who are the elderly citizens above the age of 65, pregnant women, persons with chronic illnesses, you should especially avoid any poorly ventilated enclosed space frequented by many people. If you need to visit these places, you need to wear face masks. We have a few words lastly. And right now, the COVID-19 outbreak we have witnessed today as through the domestic local transmissions, we have continued witnessing of sporadic cases. And there are also cases with a not clear source of infection. Therefore, the KCDC is continuing to cooperate closely with the local government. However, there could be some sources of infection that has not yet been identified, and this is why we need to stay vigilant. And in relation to COVID-19, there are many people who are asymptomatic and centering around the young people, and especially the young people have mild symptoms. And therefore, we believe that the outbreak has led to a global pandemic. And a few months back here in South Korea, we have an exponential increase of the confirmed cases in Daegu and Gyeongbuk region. And we can understand the reasons of such exponential surge. It is very difficult for us to strike a balance between our daily routines and quarantine measures. But during your daily routine, if you have any symptoms or if you see any suspected cases, we need to also be on alert that we need to identify any suspected cases in our daily lives. And we will continue to identify these patients at an early stage. So we ask the members of the public, if you have suspicious symptoms, please visit the screening clinic and get tested as soon as possible. And please enable us to take the first step for treatment and isolation as soon as possible. Starting from tomorrow, aside from some of the regions, many schools nationwide will be opening their schools for another phase. and the quarantine authorities are saying an alert to monitor the situation around schools. Up until now, centering around the Education Ministry, we have resumed the schools for high school seniors very smoothly. However, we highlight this multiple times. However, we believe that the COVID-19 can spread at any time and at any place, just as it did at households and multi-use facilities. If we expand the scope of our resumption of offline classes, any schools will be prone to such risks of outbreak. And in order to curb and minimize the damage, this is one of our aim and one of the crucial aspects of distancing in daily life. Moreover, when there is a suspected cases at schools and when there is a confirmed case at schools, remember that these are not to blame. Rather, they have been dedicated to identifying the patients at an early age and breaking the chains of transmissions. We are all parents and we are all respective agents and members of the society, so we need to protect each and every one of these confirmed cases. The global society is dedicated to developing vaccines and therapeutics. However, as of now, social distancing is the most crucial and effective measure to protect us against the outbreak. And at the same time, we need to reduce the fatality rate for the high-risk group so that we can reduce the number of mortalities, and we will keep going forward as like this. Thank you very much.
Right, that was Kwon Junok, the Vice Head of KCDC, with Tuesday's afternoon briefing. So do give us a summary of the key announcements.
All right, Kwon Junok said that there have been 19 new cases and 16 local transmissions. So let's break the new cases down a bit. There have been a number of new cases believed to be chain transmissions related to the Itaewon cluster infection, and also new cases that occurred at different churches, as well as some cases at a logistics center. Also, in the southeastern city of Daegu, a new case at the military has been confirmed. So epidemiological studies are being conducted on whether any of these cases could actually be linked to the Itaewon case as well. And speaking of Itaewon, now there are 255 cases in total that are related to the Itaewon cluster infection. And in regards to that, the Vice Chief of the KCDC said if anyone has been at places where infected patients have been, they should get tested for the virus regardless of their symptoms. They could be asymptomatic. And he also noted that the government is releasing a list of these places the confirmed patients went to. And he also noted that tomorrow is the day when students and kindergarten kids return to school in the second phase of the country's resumption of schools. So he asked for the staff and also the students to continue to abide by quarantine measures. And in case a COVID-19 case occurs at a school, the student or the teacher or the faculty member has to return home with a government-approved mask.
All right, so thank you for that. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Staying on with the academic arena, offline classes for high school seniors resumed last week, and other grades are poised to follow suit starting tomorrow. To get a closer look at the quarantine measures adopted by schools to ensure the safety of both the faculty and the student body, our Lee Jung-won is currently at a local high school here in Seoul. Hello, Jung-won.
Hello, I'm at Hana High School in Seoul. It's a little bit quiet here as the students has resumed their classes partially, but not for the all grades, only for the high school seniors.
Right, the resumption of offline classes are to take place in phases. Jung-won, do walk us through the protocols of precaution at schools in light of the pandemic.
Yes, the class is in full session right now, and the students have came back to school since the last May 20th, and they are taking classes right now. And in order for them to clearly take their classes, they are trying very hard. And the virus manual has been made for the students and the student officials to be followed strictly on a daily basis. And anyone who is trying to enter the school, they should wear the mask like me right now. And as you can see right here, there is a hand sanitizer. I'm going to sanitize my hands first. And this is a non-contact thermometer gun. As you can see, the teachers can take the temperature of the students without taking any direct contact to their skin. And this is a thermal imaging camera. This is to check the passerby in case they are having any symptoms or the fevers. And as you can see, the third grade students are having their classes well underway. Let's take a look at their classes through the window. There are about 20 students in one class, and all of their desks are located about 1 meter apart from one another. And all the pupils and the teachers are wearing masks in their class. Starting tomorrow, the high school sophomores are returning back to the school. Let's meet student officials and ask more about how they are preparing for it. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Can you tell us about how the school is preparing for returning second grade students?
So we're taking all the precautionary measures that we can at this moment. We've been hiring professionals to come in and disinfect the school facilities regularly. And as we speak, our own maintenance crew is going around the school and cleaning and disinfecting all the surfaces. We've also been monitoring students on a daily basis to make sure that we're on top of the situation. And for those students who are already here, we've been measuring the temperature 4 times a day. Also, students are given daily instructions on preventative measures against COVID-19. We have plastic shields up in our cafeteria and also plans for separated lunch hours to keep with social distancing.
Yes, thank you so much for your time with us. I really do hope that the safe and clean environments will be created for the students who are studying in this school. And the high school environment has been changed a lot due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. But it is really important for us to work together and follow the strict rules together on a daily basis. We should work hard to create safe environments for the people worldwide. This was Jungwon Lee at Hana High School in Seoul.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has re-emerged in public view after a 22-day absence, presiding over a meeting over the North's Central Military Committee.
나라의 핵전쟁 억제력을 더 한층 강화하고 전략 무력을 고도의 격동 상태에서 운영하기 위한 새로운 방침들이 제시됐습니다.
Amid stalled nuclear talks with the U.S. and the COVID-19 pandemic, what message is North Korea trying to send? President Moon Jae-in is looking to push inter-Korean relations forward through cross-border cooperation in the fight against COVID-19. Meanwhile, tensions are mounting between the U.S. and China over the question of who is primarily responsible for the spread of COVID-19, which could have spillover effects on Korean Peninsular affairs. What does the future hold for Northeast Asian security affairs amid the COVID-19 pandemic?
The COVID-19 pandemic is becoming a new variable in Korean affairs, poised to have significant ripple effects on cross-border ties and even those between Washington and Pyongyang. For more on this reality, I have Dr. Bong Young-sik from Yonsei University Institute for Korean Studies. Good to see you again, Dr. Bong.
Pleased to be here.
And I also have Dr. Woo Jung-yup from Sejong Institute. Welcome to the program, Dr. Woo.
Thanks for having me.
Dr. Woo, we'll start with you. Reports out of North Korea this past weekend claim that Kim Jong-un has emphasized the need to strengthen the country's nuclear power at a meeting of the Central Military Committee. How do you interpret this move?
The first thing that stand out to me was that this was his second public appearance from April 14th. The first one was at the fertilizer plant in May 1st, and then 22 days later, he showed up in presiding the Central Military Committee in 6 months since the December last year. So what's the kind of thing that he wants to deliver the message? Is this kind of like well choreographed staging effort from North Korea? So he wants to send a message to his his own people that he's taking care of economy by showing the image that he's making the fertilizer plant. And also, he wants to send a message to the United States and the world that if you don't offer anything to us, we are going to continue this way on nuclear deterrence, and we are not going to denuclearize ourselves. So maybe these two public appearances of Kim Jong-un recently was to send a message both inside and outside audiences.
I see, and direct perhaps the focus back on North Korean nuclear issues. Dr. Pong, North Korea remains shrouded in mystery despite the global pandemic. What are some of the educated guesses that you would make given the latest developments?
I like your phrase, educated guess about North Korea, because anything about North Korea is really difficult to predict or analyze with 100% confidence because of the opaqueness of the system. But we can take the educated guess based upon the observation we have. Kim Jong-un made a disappearance for more than 20 days, not just once but twice. It seems like there's a specific reason for him to hide himself from city of Pyongyang, and we can guess that that must have something to do with the COVID-19 outbreak. Because according to the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2379, all the North Korean workers deployed overseas must have been called back by the end of last calendar year. So there's a possibility that some of the North Korean workers who came back home might have carried the COVID-19 infections themselves. So Pyongyang turned out to be not a safe haven, but a dangerous area, despite the immediate measures taken by North Korean authorities to seal the borders with China. So I believe that, and it is a corona outbreak fear that has been driving the behavior of the supreme leadership of Kim Jong-un. Another source of educated guess is that the main agenda for the Politburo meeting and the People's Assembly meeting, the third conference held in April, was not anything to do with the military capacity, missile or nuclear programs, but it is about how to keep the republic safe from the outbreak. So had it North Korea safe from the outbreak of COVID-19, the Politburo meeting held in April had no reason to have that as a major agenda to discuss.
I see. That is quite interesting to note then. Meanwhile, so what is Washington's response to this latest act of defiance regarding regional security by Pyongyang? Here's an American journalist's insights into that question.
I think that the Trump administration has basically responded to this by accepting that its ongoing push for working level talks with the Kim regime is going nowhere. This was an indication in this the New Year's speech first, but then afterwards that the regime is pretty comfortable with the status quo of basically zero progress on denuclearization at this point. And the status quo that the United States is trying to keep up this maximum pressure campaign, but that the Hanoi summit ended without a big agreement and that there have been no working level talks. The increased U.S.-China tension and the U.S. allegations about Chinese possible malfeasance or something with COVID-19, this presents North Korea, it puts North Korea in a position where it has to choose. Does it align very openly and publicly with whatever's coming out of the Chinese Communist Party and its messaging towards Washington, or does it buck China a little bit and take its own path? Kim Jong-un, a dictator, a leader in his mid-30s. We don't really know where he stands at this point because he's almost been missing for the last 2 or 3 months. But he's the kind of character who sometimes does things independently. Just when you think he's a pawn for the Chinese, he does something completely on his own. So this presents him with an opportunity to do that. And it's possible, if you read it that way, that this could lead to a chance for the U.S. and North Korea to come together. We're coming to the end of Donald Trump's first term. Moon Jae-in has been emboldened by a parliament victory for his party. He's also heading into the end of his own term. He has wanted to have the inter-Korean track the entire time. Can he push denuclearization in addition to inter-Korean dialogue? I think he will. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is specifically tied to coronavirus. It's tied to the fact that the United States is hurtling toward an election. We don't know if Donald Trump will win a second term. If Donald Trump does win a second term, we're not 100% sure what he'll do with North Korea policy. So I think, yeah, they're going to push ahead regardless, no matter what, because they see that Donald Trump is not going to call them out at this point. It's just not forefront on his agenda to stop them.
Doctor, keeping Mr. Taylor's opinion in mind, where does North Korea's nuclear ambitions lie in the pecking order, so to speak, for US policymakers who are tackling the world's largest COVID-19 outbreak and preparing for the presidential election set for November?
So the Secretary Pompeo and NSC advisor, Mr. O'Brien, or even the President Trump from time to time made a comment on North Korean issue whenever there's questions from the press interview or the conference. However, a North Korean issue or any other issue other than COVID-19 is not really salient in Washington these days. If you see the news that the U.S. death toll is about 10,000, and the case it is about 1/3 of total death toll globally. That shows how serious it is now in the United States. So I think that there is no room other than COVID-19 for the United States to discuss, and even the Biden, the former vice president of U.S. and possibly the Democratic candidate, made his public appearance in 10 weeks. That means that even the president's campaign has been very dormant because of COVID-19. So from the Democratic Party's perspective, that bringing up North Korean issue is not helping them. And for the President Trump, as Mr. Taylor just mentioned, that there's no progress. So mentioning North Korea issue doesn't help him politically. So unless North Korea showed big move in this case, that there's no real political benefits both for the Republican and the Democratic candidate. That is why we don't see any discussions on North Korea these days in the United States.
Right. I mean, with the death toll nearing 100,000, that's quite severe. Dr. Bong, and despite the stall in ties between the U.S. and North Korea, President Moon Jae-in has spoken about the need to press forward to push ahead with inter-Korean ties, but North Korea has been largely unresponsive. What is your opinion regarding their stance, North Korea that is?
Well, lack of obvious response from North Korea to the initiatives spoken by the Moon Jae-in government must have something to do with a deep disappointment about lack of any positive outcomes from Hanoi summit meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Yes, the Hanoi summit meeting was not between the two leaders of two Koreas. It was between United States and North Korea. But the failure of the Hanoi summit meeting must have given leader Kim Jong-un to think about the role of South Korea as a mediator between the United States and North Korea. And what is revealed in Hanoi summit meeting is that North Korea was all in for relaxing, if not eliminating, the existing major economic sanctions on North Korea as the main goal. So inter-Korean economic cooperation might be a source of some positive development for North Korea, but compared to relaxing, for instance, the United Nations Security Council resolutions on North Korea, the expected benefit would be minimal. So North Korea has reasons to play this waiting game to see whether Moon Jae-in government of South Korea is really ready to, depart from its security cooperation and coordination with the United States in order to, galvanize inter-Korean economic projects. Otherwise, then there will be inherent limitations about, inter-Korean economic projects. For instance, the United Nations Security Council Resolution number 2379, Section 18 prohibits any major economic projects with North Korea, although projects related to infrastructure construction may be exempted by the expert panel's discretion. But as well as there is a clear danger of United States intervention to block South Korea's participation in the inter-Korean economic project, North Korea will remain suspicious of the role potentially played by Moon Jae-in government of South Korea.
I see. And amid the waiting game that you spoke about, Dr. Pong, Dr. Wu, these tensions are still mounting between the US and China amid this game that Pyongyang is playing. And how do you see these tensions as impacting, for example, cross-border ties then?
So there's a term now frequently used, the new type of Cold War, right? But the thing is much more complicated for countries like South Korea. During the original Cold War period, it was easy for us to make a choice, like just either US bloc or Soviet bloc. But since the collapse of the original Cold War, that all countries are interdependent. So for now, South Korea, we are dependent on China heavily on our economy, at the same time that our security is heavily relying on the US. So cutting off one side is seriously damaging our national interest. That is why it is so difficult for South Korea to make a choice. And if two countries are forcing South Korea to make a choice between either one, it's going to be a huge blow for the South Korea. And now it is being realized in trade and economy area when US demand its allies and partners not to use like Chinese parts. So like export control made South Korean companies and governments very difficult to operate in international supply chain.
Dr. Bong, President Moon Jae-in and Chinese President Xi Jinping spoke on the phone about 2 weeks ago, during which the President Xi Jinping talked about visiting Korea within this year. Would such exchanges perhaps impact cross-border ties favorably then?
Definitely, right. Any high-level contacts and exchange of personnel between Beijing and Seoul would be very conducive to stability and peace on the Korean Peninsula. There is no question about it. But how that summit meeting diplomacy would go is another question. First, we have to confirm whether Xi Jinping government is as committed as the Moon Jae-in government is to realizing the exchange of the top leadership or President Xi Jinping's visit to South Korea before the end of this year. If it happens, then we have to question what the main agendas of the summit meeting would be. It would be like China, South Korea upgrading their international statures as the most successful countries in coping with the COVID-19 outbreak. That is a good thing, but at the same time, that would put South Korea very close to China. In the midst of the rising tension between the United States and China, as Dr. Wu correctly points out, South Korea would need to maintain comfortable elbow room in a realm of autonomy between the two great powers, because South Korea's choice is not either or, but both China and the United States. And the tension between Trump administration and Xi Jinping government China is rising, unfortunately. China just announced its policy to depreciate yuan against US dollars to very close to 7.1 yuan per dollar. That's the lowest level since February 2008. And despite the fact that Trump administration relentlessly attacks China as a currency manipulator. That means Chinese government, basically declares to the United States that we don't care as long as we need to do everything we need in order to protect and save our economy in the middle of this global pandemics. So South Korea's strategic autonomy is likely to be increasingly shrinking. So a summit meeting between Xi Jinping and Moon Jae-in might be a good news, but at the same time, critical choice for South Korea.
And under these circumstances, Dr. Wu, what do you believe are some efforts that could be done by South Korea to ensure tangible progress in cross-border ties?
So South Korean government has continuously offered many projects toward North Korea, even though there's no positive responses yet from North Korea. So from September summit in Pyongyang, the South Korean government has offered many efforts, including cultural exchanges and economic projects, and even the humanitarian aid toward North Korea. But North Korea has declined that kind of offers since 2019. So I think that it is meaningful that South Korean government continuously provided that kind of humanitarian and other actions toward North Korea. But now it's up to North Korea whether they are going to take it or not.
So the ball is in their court then. All right, Dr. Wu and Dr. Bong, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, and that is all the time we have for today. Do join us again tomorrow at this hour for a look at the growing socioeconomic gap in the wake of the pandemic, that is. In the meantime, do reach out to us through our social media accounts or our homepage, arirang.com. Take care. See you tomorrow.